Imagine building something the world calls impossible. Imagine fighting not just failure, but loneliness, rejection, and doubt. What separates the dreamers who quit from the ones who change the world? One word: commitment. Today, we're going to uncover the darkest power lessons from Steve Jobs. Lessons about obsession, sacrifice, rejection, and unshakable discipline. These are not comfortable truths. They are not feel-good, motivational lines. They are the brutal realities that commitment demands. Commitment is not glamorous. People like to romanticize success as if it's built on inspiration, luck, or a sudden breakthrough. But the truth is far darker, far heavier. Commitment is an obsession. It's an unrelenting fixation that makes comfort irrelevant. And that is the first dark lesson. When I talk about obsession over comfort, I don't mean working late once or skipping a weekend. I mean living in a constant state where the work consumes you, where every detail of your mission occupies your mind. Even when you're away from the office, even when you're supposed to be at dinner with your family, even when the world demands you rest. Steve Jobs embodied this kind of obsession. He wasn't interested in comfort. He wasn't looking for a balanced life. He was looking for impact. That's why he would sit for hours, sometimes days, debating over the curve of a device, the color of a logo, the feel of a button. To him, these were not small details. They were the soul of the product. And when people told him he was unreasonable, when they begged him to compromise, his commitment was unshakable. Because obsession doesn't compromise. Most people never reach greatness because the moment life becomes uncomfortable, they pull back. They want results, but not the pain. They want the rewards, but not the nights of exhaustion, the sacrifices of relationships, the endless battles with self-doubt. And that's why they fail. They treat commitment like a hobby instead of a lifestyle. But Jobs taught us that commitment demands we abandon comfort, because comfort kills ambition. Think about it. When you're comfortable, you're not growing, you're not stretching, you're not pushing yourself into the unknown. Comfort is the enemy of innovation, and obsession is the antidote. It's the fire that makes you keep going, even when you're tired, even when the world says you've done enough. Jobs once said, "The people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do." But behind that crazy is not just imagination. It's an obsession. It's the relentless pursuit of a vision that refuses to let go of you. That vision will wake you up at night. It will disturb your peace. It will push you to work while others are resting. And that's the price of being committed. This is why Jobs often clashed with his own team. His standards were unforgiving. He didn't want good enough. He didn't want almost there. He demanded excellence, and he demanded it obsessively. Many hated working with him because of this. They said he was too harsh, too demanding, too difficult. But years later, those same people admitted that his obsession forced them to reach levels they never thought possible. His refusal to accept comfort created results that changed industries forever. The dark truth here is that obsession will make you misunderstood. People will call you crazy. They'll say you're chasing perfection that doesn't exist. They'll tell you to slow down, to take it easy, to be realistic. But those people are protecting their comfort. They're not committed. They don't see what you see. And if you listen to them, you'll join them in mediocrity. Commitment means saying goodbye to the life of ease. It means saying goodbye to the ordinary. It means putting yourself in situations where the pressure is unbearable, where the stakes are terrifying, and where the outcome is uncertain, and yet choosing to remain there. Why? Because you're obsessed with building something that matters. Steve Jobs didn't care if people thought he was difficult. He didn't care if he lost friends along the way. He didn't care if he looked crazy, unreasonable, or arrogant. His obsession was his compass. His obsession was his commitment. And that's why when others gave up, he pushed forward. That's why when others chose rest, he chose the grind. That's why Apple became not just another company, but a revolution. Rejection. Most people treat it like a verdict, a death sentence. They hear the word, and suddenly their dreams collapse. They believe rejection is proof that they aren't good enough, that their vision is impossible, that maybe they should give up and try something safer. But here's the truth: rejection isn't the end, it's the ignition. And if you're committed, you don't run from rejection, you burn it as fuel. Steve Jobs knew this truth better than anyone. In 1985, he experienced one of the most humiliating rejections imaginable. He was kicked out of his own company. Think about that. The company he started in a garage, the vision he gave birth to, the empire he built brick by brick. They told him he wasn't fit to lead it. To the world, that looked like the end of Steve Jobs. To most people, it would have been the end. But Jobs wasn't like most people. Rejection became his fire. Instead of walking away from technology, he dove deeper. He created NXT, a computer company that, though it didn't dominate the market, would later give Apple the foundation it needed to rise again. He invested in Pixar, a company most of Hollywood ignored. But Pixar went on to transform the entire film industry with stories that touched billions of lives. Imagine if he had treated rejection like a wall instead of fuel. The world we live in today would look very different. That is the darkest lesson of rejection. It has the power to destroy or to drive you, and the choice is yours. Most people let rejection shrink them. Jobs let it sharpen him. He didn't see rejection as proof that he wasn't capable. He saw it as proof that he had more to learn, more to build, more to become. And because of that, when Apple begged him to return over a decade later, he didn't just come back. He came back with fire in his veins. And he rebuilt Apple into the most valuable company on the planet. Commitment means you don't measure yourself by how many times you get rejected. You measure yourself by what you do with the rejection. Do you let it bury you, or do you let it fuel you? Rejection can make you bitter, or it can make you unstoppable. Jobs understood something most people don't. Rejection is feedback, not failure. When people told him his ideas were impossible, he didn't crumble. He used their doubt as proof that he was onto something they couldn't yet see. When investors laughed at his vision, when critics called him crazy, when colleagues told him he was wasting time, he absorbed every word and turned it into energy. That energy became an obsession. That obsession became innovation. That innovation became history. Here's the dark side of rejection. It will never stop coming. Even when you succeed, even when you've proven yourself 1,000 times, someone will doubt you. Someone will dismiss you. Someone will reject you. And the moment you start believing their rejection, the moment you let their no become your truth, that's the moment your commitment dies. Jobs refused to let rejection own him. Instead, he owned it. He turned it into a weapon. When Apple told him to leave, he didn't disappear. He used that pain, that humiliation, that rage, and channeled it into building something even stronger. That's why, when he returned, he wasn't just an employee. He was a force of nature. Rejection had refined him into something unbreakable. So many people dream big until rejection slaps them in the face. Then they shrink. They take smaller risks, aim for smaller goals, and convince themselves that maybe they weren't meant for greatness. But Jobs' story proves the opposite. Rejection isn't a signal to play small. It's the world testing how badly you want it. It's asking, are you committed? Or are you just interested? The difference between those who change the world and those who fade into it lies in how they respond to rejection. The weak let it break them. The strong let it forge them. Steve Jobs chose fire. And because of that, every rejection, every doubt, every no, only pushed him closer to revolution. Commitment is not only about hard work. It's not only about sacrifice or obsession. True commitment requires vision, the ability to live in a reality that doesn't exist yet. And that's the third darkest power lesson. Living in the future, not the present. Most people are trapped in the now. They make decisions based on what they can see, what they can touch, and what they believe is safe. They shape their lives around today's comfort, today's logic, today's limitations. But those who are truly committed don't live in the present. They live in tomorrow. They see things the world isn't ready for. They chase ideas the market hasn't accepted yet. They bet on possibilities others call impossible. Steve Jobs embodied this way of living when he envisioned the personal computer. Most people thought computers belonged only to scientists, corporations, or government labs. They couldn't imagine one sitting in a family's living room. But Jobs didn't live in that version of reality. He lived in a future where technology was personal, where computers were not just machines, but extensions of human creativity. And because he lived in that future, he was willing to commit everything to bring it into existence. The same happened with the iPod. At the time, the world was satisfied with bulky CD players and cheap MP3 devices. No one was demanding something different. But Jobs wasn't listening to the present. He was listening to the future. He imagined a world where your entire music library could fit into your pocket, where music wasn't about discs or files, but about freedom. Most called it crazy, but he was already living in the future. And when Apple released the iPod, the world finally caught up. That's the nature of vision. It's lonely. When you live in the future, you will often be misunderstood, criticized, and even mocked. People will question your sanity because they can't see what you see. They'll demand that you prove your vision with today's logic. And that's impossible because the future never makes sense to the present. But that's what commitment requires, that you stay loyal to a reality that doesn't exist yet. It's not easy. To live in the future is to carry a burden. You feel the weight of something bigger than yourself, something invisible to others but undeniable to you. Every decision you make, every risk you take, is guided by a world that hasn't arrived yet. You wake up with it. You sleep with it. It drives you, torments you, inspires you. And sometimes it isolates you. Because while others are comfortable in the now, you are restless for what comes next. Jobs once said that people don't know what they want until you show it to them. That wasn't arrogance. It was truth. Consumers in the present can't demand a future they don't understand. That's why living in the future requires courage. It means believing in your vision long before anyone else does. It means building something not because the present rewards it, but because the future demands it. The iPhone is another example. Before it existed, the market was dominated by clunky phones with keyboards and styluses. Nobody thought they needed a device that combined phone, music, internet, and touchscreen into one. But Jobs wasn't asking what the market wanted today. He was committed to what the future needed tomorrow. He could already see a world where technology wasn't just functional, but intuitive, seamless, and beautiful. And once again, when Apple revealed it, the world didn't just adopt it. It couldn't imagine life without it. This is the darkest part of commitment. You must live in a future where you often stand alone. It demands resilience against doubt, strength against ridicule, and faith against logic. Because the future never arrives politely. It arrives after years of rejection, resistance, and disbelief. And the only people who bring it to life are those committed enough to stay, even when no one else believes. Jobs didn't live in 1985 or 2001 or 2007. He was always 10 steps ahead. He was already living in a future the rest of the world couldn't imagine. And while that made him difficult, while it made him polarizing, it also made him revolutionary. Because commitment isn't about living where you are. It's about living where you're going. Commitment is not just about what you choose to do. It is just as much about what you refuse to do. That is the fourth darkest power lesson, the discipline of saying no. Most people believe that success comes from doing more. They chase every opportunity. They run after every idea. They fill their calendars and their lives with endless commitments. But in reality, that is the fastest road to mediocrity. Spreading yourself thin doesn't create greatness. It dilutes it. True commitment requires brutal discipline. It requires cutting away the good so you can serve the great. Steve Jobs understood this better than anyone. When he returned to Apple in 1997, the company was drowning in confusion. Dozens of products were being built at the same time. Printers, cameras, countless computers, all pulling the company in different directions. Jobs took one look at the chaos and made a radical choice. He killed nearly everything. Hundreds of projects gone overnight. Only 4 products survived. People thought he was insane, reckless, and destructive. But Jobs knew the truth. Focus creates power. Saying no creates strength. Commitment demands that you remove distractions, even if those distractions are profitable, even if they are comfortable, even if they are things you once loved. This is the side of commitment most people can't accept. They want to keep everything. They want to please everyone. They want to chase every possibility, afraid of missing out. But commitment is not about pleasing. It is about choosing. It is about sacrifice. Jobs once said, "I'm as proud of what we don't do as I am of what we do." That wasn't just a clever line. It was his entire philosophy. To him, every no was a weapon. Every no protected the mission. Every no made the yes stronger. The discipline of saying no is painful. It means turning down opportunities that look exciting but distract from your purpose. It means walking away from partnerships that could make money but don't align with your vision. It means silencing the voices around you who beg you to expand, to diversify, to compromise. And it means silencing the voice inside you that craves recognition, applause, and comfort. Commitment requires saying no to yourself more than anyone else. When Jobs insisted on perfection in Apple's products, it wasn't because he was obsessed with design for its own sake. It was because he believed that focus was sacred. If a feature didn't serve the vision, it was cut. If a product didn't fit the mission, it was destroyed. That's why Apple products feel so different. They're not bloated with compromise. They are the result of thousands of no's that protected the purity of a few bold yeses. But here is the dark truth. Saying no makes you unpopular. People will resent you. They will call you arrogant, controlling, and narrow-minded. They will say you are missing opportunities. They will try to guilt you into saying yes, into expanding, into diluting your focus. And if you are not committed, you will give in. You will say yes to too many things. And slowly, piece by piece, your vision will die, not from failure, but from distraction. Jobs never allowed distraction to win. His commitment to focus was ruthless. He wasn't afraid of being disliked. He wasn't afraid of being misunderstood. He wasn't afraid of leaving billions of dollars on the table, because he knew that commitment is not about chasing everything. It is about protecting one thing. That is the power of no. It is the knife that cuts away the unnecessary, the shield that protects the mission, the fire that keeps the vision alive. Without no, there is no focus. Without focus, there is no commitment. And without commitment, there is no greatness. Commitment is not pretty. It is not easy. It is not the polished picture the world loves to share. It is an obsession that keeps you awake at night. It is rejection that burns, but sharpens your edge. It is the loneliness of living in a future no one else believes in. It is the discipline of saying no, even when it hurts. Most people will never walk this path because it is dark, demanding, and ruthless. They want comfort, not obsession. They want acceptance, not rejection. They want to live in the present, not the unknown future. They want to say yes to everything, instead of guarding the one thing that matters. And so they fall short. But those who are truly committed, the ones willing to endure the fire, the loneliness, the sacrifice, they are the ones who bend reality. They are the ones who drag the future into the present. They are the ones who leave behind legacies that outlive them. Steve Jobs was not committed to being liked. He was dedicated to making a positive impact on the world. And he did. Not because he had the most talent, not because he had the most luck, but because he stayed when others walked away. He burned through the rejection, lived in the future, killed distraction, and clung to his obsession with unshakable devotion. That is the darkest power lesson of commitment. It demands everything, and it rewards only the few who refuse to let go.